Got it. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the November 20th, 2019 Ad Hoc Committee meeting to order. Will the recording secretary please call roll?
Here.
Here. This afternoon, the Ad Hoc Committee will interview candidates for the secondary teacher position on the Committee of Credentials. There is one vacancy for the secondary teacher on the Committee of Credentials. 3 interviews will be conducted, 1 in person and 2 via video conference Zoom. At the conclusion of the interview process, the Ad Hoc Committee will select an individual to recommend to the Commission for appointment as secondary teacher on the Committee of Credentials, and may also select individuals to recommend to the Commission to serve on the alternate pool as well. The Commission will then take final action on Friday. Ms. Kindle, will you please brief the Ad Hoc Committee on the Committee of Credential position?
On and off, so there we go. So as you know, the Committee of Credentials is comprised of 7 members. One of those members is a full-time certificated secondary school teacher in the public schools. Currently, that position is vacant because the applicant who was previously selected was unable to meet the workload requirements for the position. As you said, we have 3 applicants today, and you have some prepared questions that you can ask them in addition to any follow-up questions or clarifying questions. This time around, I'm going to provide an overview of the workload to each of the applicants prior to asking the questions so they have a better understanding of the commitment they'll be making to the Committee of Credentials. Also, we're going to indicate to them either that they would be starting on December the 10th if they're able to start that early, or January the 15th if, because of the holiday and the quick turnaround time, December the 10th is not a possibility. We wanted to make sure that people understood when their commitment was going to begin on the Committee of Credentials, because in the past that also has been an area where there has been a little bit of confusion, especially when we appoint people early in the year and they don't understand that their commitment was going to start perhaps in July 1. In this case, their commitment's going to start as soon as possible. I will be happy to answer any of your questions right now, and I can answer any procedural questions during the questioning of the applicants if they have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kindle. The first candidate is Dr. Janice Wilson. Ms. Wilson will be interviewing in person for the secondary teacher position. Good afternoon, Dr. Wilson.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well. I am Commissioner Johanna Hartwig to my left.
Nice to meet you.
To my right.
I'm Bonnie Klatt.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for speaking with us today. We're going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have. To start, just a confirmation question. Are you currently a full-time certificated classroom teacher in a public secondary school with not less than 5 years of classroom experience?
Yes.
Thank you.
Some people call this the softball question. Please tell us why you're interested in serving on the Committee of Credentials.
Okay. Yeah, sure. No problem. I have no problem with that. So part of my position, actually my full-time position right now, is working with newly credentialed teachers. I work as the coordinator of an induction program for my school district, and I also serve as a lecturer at Cal State University San Marcos in the secondary teaching credential program. And so I get to work with teachers, at the very, very beginning of their careers and mentoring them. And really, it's really about adding and keeping good teachers in the profession and maintaining high quality. And so my interest is about just helping to maintain and preserve that.
Thank you so much. And I realized I was so excited for our questions that I skipped ahead from Ms. Kindle is going to actually offer some important information about the position to you.
All right.
And so, Ms. Kindle, apologies for jumping ahead of you there. Would you go ahead and provide your information? Thank you.
This time around, we thought it was really important to let the applicants know the huge time commitment that's involved in this job. The committee does meet once a month for 3 days formally. However, all the members come the day before to pick up materials. So the Tuesday before is part of the commitment. Also, materials are uploaded on the weekend. Many of the members begin their review over the weekend because the amount of work we're talking about is quite a large amount and difficult to possibly read in the short amount of time you have on a Tuesday and in the evenings between the meeting days. So we need to make sure that I noticed that all the applicants have a lot of committees and other work commitments that they have in addition to being full-time teachers. So we want to make sure that you understand that this is a huge commitment. Each month, the Committee of Credentials will review between 95 and 105 cases initial review. And then they are also going to review the vast majority of those again 2 months later for formal review. In addition to that, there are reconsiderations, remands, probation violations, and some consent calendars. So we're talking about a huge workload. Also, the files, some of them are thin and some of them literally can be a banker's box. And we do ask you to review all those materials. So I want to make sure that if you are selected, you feel that you can meet that obligation and you're going to be asked a question about that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
I get to ask that question. So as Ms. Kendall stated, the Committee of Credentials meets 3 full days a month with a 4th partial day for preparation. And the committee reviews educator misconduct cases to determine whether to recommend discipline on the educator's license. So do you believe that you can make this time commitment and review this subject matter?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just going to ask a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
Because it is such a significant commitment, it's quite important that your employer is on board with that commitment. Have you had a chance to discuss with your employer whether they would support that?
Yeah, actually I have. In fact, before I even submitted the application, I let my direct supervisor know, who is the director of human resources. In fact, he's one of the people that wrote me a letter of reference. So yeah, I wouldn't, one of my golden rules is, never surprise your principal. In this case, never surprise your director of HR. Yeah, I'm not going to do anything without my school district knowing. So.
Thanks. So do you know any of the current members who sit on the Committee of Credentials or on the Commission on Teacher Credentialing?
I do not. Yeah. The only person that I recognize who's kind of a rock star in the world of social justice and equity is one of the people that, sit here. So, and I was actually here in this room last week, and I served on a panel for an institution that's up for accreditation. So, but that's it. Yeah. I don't know any of the commissioners or anything. No, not at all.
Okay.
We've put together a few scenarios, and in each one, discuss whether you would close the matter or if you would recommend discipline on the educator's credential. We have 3. The first one is an educator has 3 felony drug convictions in 1997, 1998, and 1999. And on each occasion, the educator used cocaine.
In 1997? Mm-hmm. So that's a long time ago, right? And so we're talking 2019. So can you clarify convictions for those things?
Yeah.
And is applying for a new credential or certificate of clearance?
Right.
Okay.
To have their credential reinstated.
To be reinstated. So I took a look at some of the documentation that was on the website, and it seems to be that if a certain period of time has elapsed and the person can show that they have been rehabilitated and satisfied requirements, according to the commission, according to the legal system, then can I ask a clarification?
Yes.
Is there a new incident that would be pending, or just in 1997, 1990? So almost 20 years ago, right? So I don't if the person is a upstanding citizen, then probably not. I would probably close it.
All right. Scenario number 2, I can go ahead.
Was that the right answer?
I get to read all 3? All righty. An educator was convicted of a single count of disturbing the peace in 2018.
Okay.
The educator used profanity in a restaurant while under the influence of alcohol and while children were present.
And so the last sentence was?
That the educator used profanity in the restaurant while under the influence of alcohol and while children were present.
And while children were present. So it could be children were present from the community in which the person teaches. That would be alarming, and that would be cause for concern. So what are my 3 choices are to close it. The other one is to
Or recommend discipline or revoke it.
It depends on the circumstances. You know, in the world of HR, we said, it depends a lot. So based upon those things, since it was recent, since children were present, if it were in the area that the teacher is teaching in that community, then that might be a cause for some discipline.
All right. And then the final one is a little longer.
Okay.
And as Ms. Kimball said, sometimes these can get quite long. But a male teacher appearing before the Committee of Credentials admits that he's taken one of his minor female students to the mall and purchased clothing for her, as well as provided her transportation outside of school. The student disclosed sexual abuse at home, and the teacher encouraged her to seek therapy.
Okay. Well, the teacher is a mandated reporter, so that person is obligated to report that. And if they don't, so seeking therapy is never a bad way to go, but the teacher also has an obligation to report as a mandated reporter. Additionally, I would question why the teacher was taking a student to the mall and purchasing clothes. So.
What would you do with that teacher then?
I would not close the file because it warrants some more investigation. Possibly a recommendation for discipline, but probably I don't think it warrants the revocation of a credential.
All right. When faced with a difficult case in the committee, which do you think should be given greater weight? The protection of the teacher or the protection of school children?
Always make decisions in the best interest of kids. Always.
You have extraordinary experience that shows that you are an extremely seasoned educator and have had a lot of wonderful work working with teachers. I would like to give you an opportunity to expand upon your experience working on matters that are similar to what it is that this committee particularly does, which requires sifting of evidence, weighing evidence, and making very sensitive disciplinary decisions. You don't need to tell me you've done something exactly like this, but it would help me to be guided by what are the closer experiences that you have had to doing this type of decision-making work.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So obviously I haven't had the chance to make disciplinary decisions. However, I have in the past coached people out of the profession because it wasn't a good place for them to be. Both candidates for the preliminary credential and people who had the preliminary credential. And so when you say sifting of evidence, it's looking at, I've had the opportunity to take a look at, different circumstances. And the huge question for me is always, is this person a good person for kids? And the highest question that I ask myself, and I confer with my director of HR, who's a great mentor, and we say, it's like, would we want our own kids, in that person's class? So some of the discussions that I've had with people are about, do you just need to get things together? Are you going through a tough time in your life? Life happens, circumstances happen, and what flexibility I have. So I work, as I said, I coordinate an induction program. I also serve as a mentor.
You are in the Zoom meeting now.
Should I continue? Yeah. So lost my train of thought. So yeah, just looking at different circumstances, individuals, and are they going through a rough time? Is this something that's going to be consistent? I work with new teachers, so they're either all temporary teachers or probationary teachers, and on some occasions, I've spoken with administrators about concerns that I have about new hires or even second year teachers when I go observe. And sometimes it's, there have been a couple occasions where I've left somebody's classroom and gone directly to the administrator's office and said, I have a concern, kids are in danger. And sometimes it's been, you might want to spend a little bit more time with this in this teacher's classroom, to see if you're seeing what I'm seeing. And if there's a concern, I'll go observe a teacher multiple times, different times of the day, since I'm secondary, different periods of the day, and sometimes have some frank conversations. So I gave an example, I've coached people out of the profession who when they realize it was probably a good move for them. So. Yeah.
I have one final logistical question before giving you a chance to ask any questions you have, and that has to do with, should you be selected, timing of the start of your service. Because we are down someone in this position, ideally you would be able to start at the December meeting, which starts soon. On December 10th.
Soon.
Very soon.
Yes.
So it starts on December 10th. We do have a substitute who could handle that meeting if you were selected and not able to start until January, which starts on January 15th is the next meeting.
Okay.
Do you know at this point, if you are selected, whether you would be available to start on that December meeting?
Okay. So, I'm going to be very frank and stuff. So I have the pleasure. I am not in a classroom right now. I'm a teacher on special assignment. And so I do have a lot of flexibility. So for example, I could very easily come up here today. Southwest is a beautiful thing. The induction calendar is very busy through the end of the semester, which ends on December 20th. So yes, I possibly could. I would prefer not to start until January. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah. Thanks. We're just,
So,
this is not a determinative question.
Okay,
It's more a finding out.
After the semester ends, things get a little bit more flexible. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do have the flexibility of being here. So, yeah.
Great. Do you have any questions for us?
I do. Okay. And I wrote them down on my phone. Okay. I want to make sure I got them correct. So I was reading something. Now, actually, a question of clarification. The original announcement that went out was for an alternate for this position. And so is there a full vacancy at this time?
There is.
Okay. All right. So the announcement went in the PSD e-blast several months ago. So, and it just, okay. So that's just a question of clarification. So based upon the committee recommendation, when somebody comes with with something that needs discussion at the very least, does the committee create a follow-up plan or anything like that for the individual, or do they set particular requirements that are, for the person who has the credential that is, or anything like that, or it's just you can come back, later on if need be?
Ani, do you want to answer this? I might be able to answer, but you will do so more fully.
So what the Committee of Credentials is doing is making a recommendation as to what the outcome would be. That recommendation can be, as we talked about, a close or some form of discipline. And that recommendation then goes to the commission to adopt or not. And there is no option for an improvement plan or there is a possibility of probation, but that is not something that the Committee of Credentials has the option of doing, unfortunately. That's something that happens through the litigation process.
Gotcha.
Okay. So it's a very difficult job, and then also all you're able to do is make a recommendation.
Gotcha. And that was actually one of my questions. Is the action of the committee a recommendation or a decision?
It's a recommendation.
Gotcha. Just kind of like a WASC report, right? It's a recommendation. So, and
It's a recommendation that then the commission has to adopt.
Sure.
Or not adopt.
Or not, right. It's a recommendation. I understand. So, and all the meetings they're face-to-face meetings. I know that you're having a couple Zoom interviews today, but are all the meetings face-to-face?
The meetings are always face-to-face, and I'm really glad you asked, because the one thing I failed to mention is although they normally meet the third week of the month, that changes depending on the commission's schedule and sometimes holidays, and so you have to also have that flexibility too. We have a calendar, so you can find out what it is ahead of time.
That's good.
It's a year in advance. We have a calendar, so it's not going to surprise you,
Okay.
but it can rotate. So, for example, in December, it's a week earlier than it would normally be because of the holiday
season.
And then also the commission gets to pick their meeting dates first, and we work around the commission's dates. So sometimes that impacts because each month the staff is creating documents for you to be able to review. So there's this constant cycle that we're going through. And so it is always in person as far as the members go. As far as the respondents go, they have the choice of either appearing in person if they want, or they can submit written documents, but there is no option for a teleconferencing meeting or anything like that.
Sure.
Either they have to come or they have to do written.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there's no in between.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
And about a third of them come. About 2/3 just go with a written presentation.
Written statement. And really? Interesting.
And then some don't respond at all. So there's that.
One would hope that they would respond. So, but free will, right? Okay. And the term of service is for 2 years, yes?
It's for 2 years, and there's an option for renewing up to 4 terms. So we like people who have made the commitment to hopefully continue to make the commitment, because there is a learning curve involved, and it really does take a couple of years to get the feel for it.
Yeah.
So and about a year and a half into it, we would come to you and say, we're hoping that you would be willing to re-up, and assuming the commission was willing to reappoint you, many members serve as much as 8 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the maximum.
Wow. Okay.
And one of the things that I just wanted to add to this is that the pieces that the work that this committee does is substantial, but it's also incredibly important because those big questions about what puts children in harm's way, which you talked about, what puts the educator profession at risk, and then what protects the public.
Yeah.
And those are big questions to consider. And we have a big state with lots and lots of teachers, and so we have, as you said, a substantial number that really need to be addressed in a responsible way, but also keeping those key questions at the forefront.
Yeah. I looked at some of the data that was online, although it only went through 2010, and I was actually surprised about the sheer number of cases that were open. So, and I don't know if that number has gone down or up since. So, it's not necessarily a question, but I appreciate what you said in terms of making decisions that are best in the best interest of kids. That's what guides my work all the time. And another thing that I'm familiar with is the Model Code of Ethics for Educators. So my former work partner and I, we actually did the online course called Proethica, and about different situations that you presented to me. So some of those it sounded familiar, and different things that could lead people astray with the best intentions or not best intentions. So anyway, so.
Well, we want to thank you very much for your time here. We're very grateful for your willingness to serve on this important committee if you are selected. So thank you for taking the time to come and speak to us today.
My pleasure. So, all right. Those are all my questions as well. So, thank you.
The second candidate is Julia Knopf. Ms. Knopf will be interviewing via Zoom for the secondary teacher position.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Can you see us?
I can see you. Can you see me?
We cannot.
Start video, maybe?
Yeah, she's
Let's
about
see if
to
that
ask you for a
works.
second. Yes.
There
There you go. Great. Hello. Hello, Ms. Knopf. Thank you for speaking with us today. My name is Commissioner Johanna Hartwig. To my left,
Kate Williams Brown.
to my right.
Bonnie Klatt.
We're going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions you may have. But to start, I would like to ask Ms. Ani Kindle to provide a little bit more information about this position. Ms. Kindle is an attorney in the Division of Professional Practices. Ms. Kindle?
Good afternoon. I wanted to give you some background as to what this position entails so that you can make a commitment with enough information to know what you're getting yourself into. The Committee of Credentials meets technically for 3 days a week, but they actually come the day before on Tuesday to do prep. Also, materials are uploaded, and a lot of the members do prep over the weekend. They review between 95 and 105 cases for initial review. And in addition to that, most of those cases go forward to formal review. And there's also reconsiderations, remands, probation violations, and consent calendars. So we're talking about a tremendous amount of work. So we want to make sure that the candidate that's selected has a good understanding of the commitment they're making, both as to coming to the meetings and also doing the preparation for the meetings. And I think that hasn't been maybe as laid out as the way we're doing at this meeting. So I want to make sure that you understand what some of the files may be a folder. Other files may literally be a banker's box. So we want to make sure that you can make that kind of time commitment and be at the meetings and prepare for the meetings.
Okay. I
And
think
we'll-
I can. I'll have
Oh,
to
great.
think about
Well, we're going to ask you in more detail in a second, but I'm going to start with just a confirmation question about eligibility. Could you confirm for me that you are currently a full-time certificated classroom teacher in a public secondary school with not less than 5 years of classroom experience?
I am.
Great. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We just wanted you to tell us why you were interested in serving on the Committee of Credentials.
Well, I have been working as a union rep on my campus. I've been exposed to some of this. I find it quite interesting. And I've started serving on the peer review panel in my district also, which does some of this, not to this extent, obviously. But I find, first of all, I find it very interesting. And second of all, I really do think if somebody has gotten to the point where they're in front of the commission, they need people that are intelligent, unbiased, willing to work with other people, and adept at learning things quickly so that they can serve well.
As Ms. Kendall stated, the Committee of Credentials meets 3 full days a month with an additional 4th partial day for preparation. The committee reviews educator misconduct cases to determine whether or not to recommend discipline on the educator's license. Do you believe that you can make this commitment, both the time commitment and your ability to review the subject matter?
I do. The Tuesday through Friday is not particularly a problem, and the reading, not particularly a problem.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that question, is your employer aware of and supportive of that commitment to, since you are employed full-time, are they aware?
I've been working with them. It's a very large district, so it's hard to get answers quickly. But the head of human resources is talking to the head of the PAR panel, the review panel that I'm on, to make sure that they feel like it would benefit the district. But I don't see a problem. I haven't been told no, so.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know any of the current members who sit on the Committee of Credentials or who sit on the Commission on Teacher Credentialing?
No.
A good group now. So I'm going to read to you a few scenarios. And for each one, just talk a little bit about, in a sense, how it looks to you. Would you close the matter, or would you recommend discipline, and even what kind of discipline you'd recommend? So I have 3. The first one is, an educator has 3 felony drug convictions in 1997, 1998, and 1999. On each occasion, the educator used cocaine. The file would probably say more, but that's the scenario.
Okay. And that's the entire scenario?
That's
Okay.
a short one.
Good. Well, good. I don't believe I would close it. I would obviously need more information. Have they, has anything been overturned? Have they been through a drug rehab program? So what have they done to redeem themselves? I'd like to know those things first, so I can get a full scenario for the person. I do think that if the commission is just being made aware of it, I don't know, I'd have to really think that one through. Discipline, yeah, not up to suspension, but a reprimand. I don't think I'd recommend for the credential to be pulled. It's old, and unless they have done nothing to redeem themselves, then the measures that I believe that should be taken should be harsher.
Okay, let's try one that's has a little bit more in it. An educator was convicted of a single count of disturbing the peace in February 2018. The educator used profanity in a restaurant while under the influence of alcohol and while children were present.
Okay. I think that with this one, there should be a reprimand. If it's a one-time incident and has never happened before, perhaps a suspension would serve because it is in the public and viewable to everyone. So probably a suspension, if that's one of my choices. It wasn't mentioned, but I assume it is.
Okay.
Can you just give us a little bit more of your reasoning about why a suspension?
I just think that when a teacher who, one of the things that I say is teachers are never in private unless they're in their house. We are held to a higher standard than other people. And when you go out in public, you're never not a teacher. If you are viewed, especially by children, and you use profanity, and if you've been drinking to the point where you've lost control of yourself, I do think a suspension is warranted because you're never a private person as a teacher.
And here's the third scenario. A male teacher appearing before the Committee of Credentials admits that he had taken one of his minor female students to the mall and purchased clothing for her, as well as provided her transportation outside of school. The student disclosed sexual abuse at home, and the teacher encouraged her to seek therapy.
I feel as teachers, we have to be very careful of how we're perceived, but I'd have no objection to a teacher buying a kid clothes if they need it. Encouraging them to get help, I certainly have no problem with. I think driving in a car is with them is poor judgment because it leaves you very vulnerable to accusation, and that can be a problem for a teacher, and especially a male teacher, but all teachers for sure. And I think at that point, I don't think that's I would probably close that one. I just feel like that's part of what teachers do. Maybe something private, but I don't even know if that's warranted.
I know that you've worked with members who were filing grievances. So I just wondered if from all that experience that you've had, is there a scenario that you could describe and how you addressed it or thought it should have been adjudicated?
Well, it's been everything from going in to talk to an administrator and them explaining the contract to me and me explaining to them that they're wrong, and showing them proof that they are misinterpreting what they believe they've read, to there was a grievance filed during the first 3 days that we come back to school. When the students are there, it's considered work days, and by contract there can be no professional development during those days. There can be meetings, but they have to be operational type meetings. And there is an online course, a series of courses on campus that anybody that was teaching it as a new teacher to that course was required to attend a 3-hour training on one of those work days. and they had to, or they wouldn't be allowed to teach the course, and it was professional development. So it was a violation of the contract. I went to the union. We filed the grievance against the district, not just for the people on my campus, but across the district whose rights have been violated. The district agreed that it was in a meeting, agreed that it was a violation of contract. The question was pay, whether they were going to be paid workshop rate or pro rata. They offered workshop rate. The griever refused that, asking for pro rata. And there is a meeting at the end of week after next, I believe, between the district and the union and the grievant to discuss a settlement of that. And if it's not settled, it would probably go to arbitration.
I had just one additional scenario I wanted to put to you.
Sure.
So in this one, a male teacher, a high school teacher, has started texting with one of his female sophomore students. And he's a student, she is a student he knows from class and also from a club he runs after school. And they have started texting back and forth, including at middle of the night hours. And he has invited her to meet with him at a coffee shop if she ever wants to talk about any of her academic interests or their club. How would you approach this scenario?
Well, my first thought is that this teacher is grooming her for something. And I don't think any of what was said or done is appropriate at all. In that case, that's pretty egregious. I mean, I would probably recommend for the license to be revoked.
Thanks. And can you just say a little bit more about why is it egregious
It's inappropriate.
to you?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, I was just saying, why is it egregious to you? What is your judgment about it?
Because it wouldn't even matter if it was a female or a male teacher. The communication is inappropriate. It's private. It is at inappropriate times. And you don't say what the context of the texts are, but I'm sure in the middle of the night they're not discussing meeting at a coffee shop. And to me, it is so inappropriate for a teacher to approach a child that way. And it's very dangerous for both of them. And it shows completely poor judgment on the teacher's part and is incredibly unprofessional.
Thanks.
Okay, when faced with a difficult case in the committee, which do you think should be given greater weight, the protection of the teacher or the protection of school children?
With no information to work from, I think safety of children comes first, but I don't think that teachers' rights should be ignored because there are, that is also something that's important to look at. So, but children first.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then my final question before we see if you have any questions, and I ask my fellow commissioners if they have additional questions, is really a logistical question. And it's not one that's going to determine whether you are recommended or not. It's just for us to get information. If you are selected, we would love for you to start as soon as possible because we are down a committee member. The sooner the better. Our next committee meeting starts on December 10th. And then the meeting after that is on January 15th. We do have a substitute member who could cover the December meeting if necessary, but ideally, if you were selected, it would be great for you to start at that December meeting. Is that something that within your schedule you think you would be able to manage? Again, this is not determinative of whether we recommend you or not. We're just getting information.
Not having my lesson plan book in front of me, I'm not sure. I would truly want to look at it first to make sure, because it's such short notice, that it's something that I can handle and still keep my kids educated. January would not be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for Ms. Nuff? Okay. Do you have questions for the panel?
I do. Let me see. Where did I put my questions? Here they are. I've read everything that I can online about the commission, and I feel like I have a very good grasp of what you do without actually being there and seeing it. I'm sure it's something akin to what I do with our review panel, but in much bigger scale. I think that my questions are more logistical, if you have logistical answers.
Sure, fire away.
Okay. I have one on the phone. Let me open it up real quick. So this is for the district, actually. If we go out on professional, district business, which is what this would be coded under, teachers are not allowed to purchase anything and then be reimbursed. So everything would have to be paid by the state up front. Is that an issue?
I'm going to refer this to Ms. Kindle.
And I'm going to answer the best I can. I also don't handle the actual dollars and cents of how this is done, but you are, the room is taken care of, but sometimes you are required to have some upfront expenses that are then reimbursed based on the per diem rates. So I can't say that no, everything may not be upfront. It could be that you would pay for your lunch and then it would be reimbursed. I'm thinking what other expenses. The travel is taken care of through the Southwest contract, and so that's not a problem. But there may be times where you would have to make an out-of-pocket expense that's reimbursed.
Okay, and does that include like travel from the airport to the hotel and then the hotel to wherever the meeting is?
Yes, all that is covered, but at the rates that the state establishes.
Okay, but it might be an upfront expense that I get reimbursed for?
Yes.
I'm just trying to get it clear. Okay.
Yes. And a lot of the members have over the years put things on there they've had to cover up front, and we have reimbursed them. So that's very common.
So I'd have to clear that with the district.
So just to make sure I understand, the major expenses like the hotel and the airfare do not have to be covered up front and reimbursed. Those are covered by the states directly.
They are.
Okay. This gives me the information I need to take to the district just to make sure everything's good on their part. Let's see. For the substitute, does the district just submit a bill, lack of a better word, to the state?
Again, some of the questions you're asking are highly technical. They're not really legal questions, but ones that our support staff handles. But I believe so, yes.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
we can certainly follow up with you with
But
that.
the substitute is
that
covered.
information.
That I can tell you. Exactly how that happens, I may not be able to address, but the substitute is covered for your classroom.
Yeah, no, I knew that they were coming. So
Is it the same
just
way
wanted-
as it is for me?
Actually, this is.
There's a form that you will need to submit to your district, and then they fill it and they send the invoice to the commission. Then the commission will reimburse that substitute
Okay.
to the district directly.
Right. Okay, perfect. If I'm asked these questions, I just want to be able to answer them the best I can. Really, it was really just kind of those types of things. So I'm good.
Okay, great. Well, we want to thank you for your time and for your willingness to serve on this very important committee. So thank you so much for your time, and we will look forward to following up with you.
And do you have a time?
Thank you.
Do you have a time frame for that by chance?
Yes. Ms. Kindle, will you remind me?
The question was,
Just the time frame for the selection,
well, you're going to
when
make
it
a
will be publicly available.
you're going to make a recommendation that's going to be adopted probably by the commission on Friday, and then a letter will be sent out. But it will be publicly announced on Friday, so you can hear it if you want to. Otherwise, you'll receive a letter in about a week.
Okay, letter in a week. Okay, well, that's good. That's a short time frame. That's awesome. So I really appreciate you all talking to me and giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, wonderful to meet you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
The third candidate is Carol Mark. Ms. Mark will be interviewing via Zoom for the secondary teacher position. Good afternoon, Ms. Mark. Am I saying your name properly?
Yes, that is correct, Mark.
Ms. Mark.
Good afternoon. I just got the audio to work. It wasn't working
Oh,
before.
great. Can you hear us okay?
Perfectly. Yes.
Great. My name is Commissioner Johanna Hartwig, and to my left
I'm Kate Williams Brown.
and to my right.
Bonnie Klatt.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you for speaking with us today. We are going to ask you a few questions, and at the end of the interview, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions you may have. But first, I would like to ask Ms. Annie Kindle from the Division of Professional Practices. She's an attorney with that division, to provide a bit more information about this position so that you can have full understanding of it. Ms. Kindle?
Good afternoon. I wanted to give you some details about the commitment that you might be making in order for you to be able to fully comprehend the workload that we're talking about and make your commitment with open eyes. So the committee meets 3 days a week officially, but the members usually come the day before, Tuesday, to pick up physical files to review. Over the weekend, we upload materials to a secure website. Most of the members begin their review over the weekend. The reason they do this is because they're looking at between 95 and 105 cases for initial review each month, and then most of those cases will go forward again to formal review, which is even more detailed. And then, in addition to that, there are reconsiderations, remands, probation violations, and a couple of consent calendars. So it's quite a bit of work that you're looking at. Some of the files are small files with maybe a small amount of information. Others can be as large as a banker's box. So we're talking about a tremendous amount of reading and a time commitment of at least the 4 days a month. The meetings usually are the third week of the month, but that can fluctuate, that can change based on holiday schedules and the commission schedule. You would be given a calendar ahead of time, but you'd be asked to make a commitment to not miss meetings if at all possible. So that's what we want everybody to know before they sign up for this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kindle. So I'm going to start with just a confirmation question about your eligibility. Could you confirm for me that you are currently a full-time certificated classroom teacher in a public secondary school with not less than 5 years of classroom experience?
Yes, that is correct.
Thanks.
Please tell us why you are interested in serving on the Committee of Credentials.
That's a good question, because I was just yesterday talking to my co-teachers, telling them about this interview, and they were like, why would you want to do that? And my response was, why wouldn't I want to do this? And I went on to explain that I had an experience when I was in Korea. I taught in South Korea for a year in a private school, and about 12 years ago. And among our staff were, several American teachers. And one of the teachers, we noticed some inappropriateness, inappropriate behavior that we believed to be sexual in nature towards kindergarten students, girls. And we didn't actually directly see him engaging in that, but we did have there were strong indications that something was awry. And we took it to the principal and explained our concerns. And the principal, who was South Korean, said that he thinks that maybe it's a cultural misunderstanding, and which frustrated us because actually it was a cultural misunderstanding. Nothing was done about it. And it kind of just really haunted me. I left the job the next year and he remained, and nothing. I had heard that he was gone from the position and that something had indeed happened. He was caught doing something. And recently a friend of mine told me that he was in prison in Arizona for said conduct, and he had his credential revoked in both California and Arizona, and was doing time. So I see this as, I know that this isn't the only case type of misconduct. I downloaded the brochure, the whole booklet. Do you see that? The one that you have for the teacher credentialing for this, California laws and rules. And I've been reading it and going through it and seeing, how comprehensive it is. And it's interesting to me. And that's why I would like to be on the committee. Because I see it as a good service, and it is something that needs to be done.
All right. Sorry, it's been a long day and I'm stumbling over my words for a moment.
Okay.
As Ms. Kendall stated, the Committee of Credentials meets 3 full days a month with an additional partial fourth day for preparation. The committee reviews educator misconduct cases to determine whether or not to recommend discipline and, on the educator's license. Do you believe that you can make this time commitment and also review this subject matter?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I wrote on my application that I am because I'm of the nature, I'm an English teacher, and I've taught at all levels. I've taught at the university level, college level rather, the high school level and the middle school level. And I'm a fast reader because of it. I know how to get through material. The time commitment, as you might notice from one of my letters, the assistant superintendent of our school district wrote me a letter of recommendation. She said she highly recommends me for this position. She's worked with me on a committee, the local committee of special assignments, to determine analyzing the teacher's credentials because of an ed code to determine whether they are qualified to teach the subject they're teaching for an elective. So she has worked with me, on ed codes, and she has highly recommended me. And so that right there would indicate that she has confidence that I would be a good candidate for this and that I would follow through. I am a very reliable, responsible person. I wouldn't take this on if I did not think that I could, in fact. stay with it and do it. So yes, I have the time. I'm old enough. I'm not raising children anymore.
Okay.
I
Well,
could do it.
my follow-up question was going to be, is your employer aware of this time commitment? But it sounds like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
already happened. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. So do you know any of the current members who sit on the Committee of Credentials or on the Commission on Teacher Credentialing?
I do not.
So I'm going to give you a few scenarios of the kinds of situations that we have. And if you could listen to each of them and just discuss whether you would close the matter or recommend discipline and what discipline you might recommend. The first one, and they are shorter than the file would be, but they're scenarios. Okay. So the first one is an educator has 3 felony drug convictions in 1997, 1998, and 1999. On each occasion, the educator used cocaine. So
That's it.
how does that look to you? Yeah, there'd be more in the file, but let's just go with that.
Okay. So, well, first of all, I'd have to really read the ed code that goes with this in that booklet, and then I would look at these. The first thing I would look at is the fact that the person violated in 3 successive years. You said 97, 98, 99. Was that it? Yeah.
Yep.
So those are time spaces very close together. I would also look at the fact that have they been in recovery, and consistently in recovery. I don't know. It seems to me that there would be in place that there's probably people that have had in their past these kind of issues, and if they were in fact being drug tested regularly and proven a successive amount of extended amount of recovery and being clean, I would look at that. Those are the things that I would look at. But obviously, the first thing I would look at is what the manual would say and recommend.
Okay. Can I go into 2? Yes. Okay. Sometimes they have follow-up. So scenario number 2, an educator was convicted of a single count of disturbing the peace in February of 2018. The educator used profanity in a restaurant while under the influence of alcohol and while children were present.
Okay. Again, we're dealing with another substance abuse issue. I would have to look at what this person's track. I would definitely insist that they go in for recovery into some kind of a program to treat perhaps, or to look at alcohol abuse. And then again, I would look at the code. See, I don't have all this.
I'm going to give you a little more information because we give you so little, it's not very clear. It's actually not within the mandate of the committee to order a treatment plan. We're limited to closing the matter, recommending some discipline that would be short of revoking the license or revoking the license. And so we don't need from you tons of specifics about what the discipline might be because, this is short and you're not familiar with all the discipline, but
right.
It's not within our remit to, order treatment. So for this situation, do you think it's something where you would close the matter, or is there some form of discipline short of revocation you think would be appropriate, or do you think revocation would be appropriate?
I think short of revocation, the person should be, I think in that instance, the person should be given some kind of disciplinary, and I don't know what the disciplinary action would be, but I think not revocation for that.
Okay.
There's no assault involved, right?
No assault involved. So could you just give us a little bit more of your reasoning of why discipline is warranted?
Because, well, it's a tricky thing because the person was not in school. So that is, that's tricky. If the person was in school, that would be a much more serious thing. Being drunk in school and behaving that way, that is a serious issue. So again, it's like I'd have to look. See, I'm a kind of the by the book. I would look in here and think, what are the limitations of discipline? This is a person in a restaurant. It's on his own free time behaving that way. It's extremely it's not good behavior, and they're definitely a poor reflection on the teacher to be behaving like that. But yeah, I mean, again, this is like off the hand. I'd have to have more, I'd need more information on that.
Fair enough. Okay. My third scenario is a male teacher appearing before the Committee of Credentials admits that he had taken one of his minor female students to the mall and purchased clothing for her, as well as provided her transportation outside of school. The student disclosed sexual abuse at home, and the teacher encouraged her to seek therapy.
Oh, okay. Wow. Extremely inappropriate. Obviously, no, there was no reported sexual misconduct on his part. Wow. I mean, I definitely think that there should be some form of counseling and discipline. Revocation, I think not. But really inappropriate for a teacher to be doing something like that. And again, I would need to look at the booklet and yeah, I'd have to read through it on that.
And again, do you just mind sharing a little bit more? It may seem obvious to you, but expand for us a little bit on why do you think this is inappropriate behavior?
Well, first of all, the liability on driving, having a student in a car, the liability is, it's not a good thing. What if there had been an accident? What if the parents, just everything about him getting into a car with a young, with a student, it's just not appropriate, unless there's permission, permission by the parents, unless there's permission by the school district. Forms were signed that he could do this, and one-on-one, it's just not appropriate for a man to be with, or a woman, or anything, for a teacher to be alone with a student. I mean, it's just something that we have all had hammered into our head. And then buying clothing in a mall. Again, it's inappropriate. Even just, I have questions about the appropriateness now of, even if he were to bring clothing to the student and present it to her, what are the ramifications of even that, much less taking a student to a mall alone. So it's just flat out inappropriate. And I'm sure there's something in this booklet that would elaborate more on it, enlighten me more on it, the reasons why not.
Great.
All right. As you've probably seen, some of these cases are difficult. So when faced with a difficult case in the committee, which do you think should be given greater weight? Protection of the teacher or protection of the student?
Oh, 100% protection of the student. That children and students, children are our priority. Absolutely. No question.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask a logistical question that it's not going to influence whether we recommend you as our selected candidate. It's more just information gathering for us, which is about when you might be available to start. As you may know, we're down a person on this committee, and so we're looking for our selected candidate to start as quickly as possible. The next meeting starts on December 10th, and then the meeting after that starts on January 15th. We do have a substitute available who could cover the December meeting if needed, but ideally, if you were available and selected, you would be able to start in December. Do you know offhand whether that would be something possible for you? Again, this will not influence whether we recommend you or not. This is more just information for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I have nothing. I'm looking at I just look at my calendar. I have nothing that would interfere with that.
Great.
So I would be able to begin right away.
Great. Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for Ms. Mark?
No.
Okay. Yes. Ms. Mark, do you have questions for us, for the panel?
Okay. So yes, I do have one question. The question is, you had said that you would want us to come on Tuesday. Would Tuesday evening be enough to pick up the information for starting on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday?
I'm going to let Ms. Kindle answer that question for you.
Okay.
For the first meeting, we would need you Tuesday morning because we are going to train you. And then after that, in the beginning, I would say no. I think you need to have a good part of Tuesday to prep on these cases. Over time, there may be a point where you have a conflict on Tuesday and somebody can, yes, we could accommodate an occasional time when you're not coming in first thing on a Tuesday, certainly. And we have been able to accommodate certain other interruptions in the meeting. But especially in the beginning, I think the time commitment really is you need to be there pretty early on Tuesday.
This is not a problem. I just was curious because it had said on the website that it was 3 days, and I am perfectly okay to commit to 4 days. Like I said, my superintendent is completely down with me doing this. Obviously, you pay for the substitute. Am I correct? So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's not a problem. It's not a problem at all. And most of my curriculum is online. My curriculum that I teach is online, and I can actually access it remotely. So lesson planning is so much easier now that we have online curriculum. So it's not a problem at all. 4 days is fine.
And the reason we're making a big point of it is that actually was the conflict for the individual that was previously selected. They had a Tuesday conflict and they just thought they could fly in end of the day on Tuesday from San Diego, and that just is not going to work. So
yeah, no, it's not a problem for me at all.
So we're making a point of making sure everybody understands at this time so we don't have an issue like that.
Right.
Any other questions we can answer for you, Ms. Mark?
Oh, no. One of my questions was the training period. Is there going to be training prior? And you just answered that. And yeah, I think that's all. I thank you for this opportunity to interview. I was honored that you selected me as a candidate, and I hope that whoever you pick will be the right person, and I hope that I'm it.
Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate the time that you spent with us today, and really appreciate also your willingness to serve on this very important committee. So thank you so much, and take care. And so that you know about the timing, our recommendation to the commission will be made at the commission during the commission meeting that is happening this week. And so those meetings are actually streamed, so you can access those, and they are also archived, I believe. But in addition to that, you will be sent a letter, which you should receive within a week about whether you were selected or not. Okay.
Okay. Very
Okay.
good.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Ms. Mark.
Bye-bye.
We will now move into our deliberations. We have heard from 3 secondary teacher applicants, Dr. Janice Wilson, Julia Knopf, and Carol Mark. I would, if it's acceptable, can we take a minute for, well, let me ask. Commissioners, do you need any time on your own to think about the selection, or can we begin the discussion right now?
I think we can begin.
Are you comfortable beginning the discussion right now? Okay. We are here to recommend an applicant for membership on the Committee of Credentials. Let's discuss our thoughts on the strengths and weaknesses of each of the applicant. And I would first like to direct us back to the information we were provided, which sets out the criteria by which we should make our selections. So if we look at the first page, or the second page of our packet, under selection process, it shows us section 511B, and I'm just going to review this for us so that we can keep these in mind as we discuss. Identifying, scoring, ranking, discussing, and recommended nominees for the Committee of Credentials to the Commission according to the following factors. 1, the total membership of the Committee of Credentials should be broadly representative of the community with respect to gender, ethnic and cultural background, and geographical area of residence. 2, persons nominated should be of balanced and judicious temperament with broad understandings of and respect for community values and attitudes. And 3, persons nominated must be willing and able to devote the time and effort necessary to carry out the work of the committee. And then just one further piece of information to help lay out our discussion. And Ms. Kendall, please correct me if any of this does not sound right to you, but by my review of the 6 current members of the committee, we have, in terms of gender, 4 men and 2 women. In terms of geographical location, we have 2 from the Sacramento area, 2 from the broader Bay Area, and 2 from Los Angeles. And we do not have information about ethnic and cultural background. So that's as to 511B1. And then, of course, we can discuss, have in mind number 2 and number 3 while we are making our, having our deliberations. So, Commissioner Clapp, would you like to discuss your, well, I am going to suggest that through our discussion that you present your top candidate, if Commissioner Barnes is comfortable with this, that you present,
Brown.
I'm sorry, Brown, okay. Brown, sorry, that Commissioner Brown is comfortable with this. I'm going to suggest that you suggest your top candidate, and if it is in alignment with our top candidates, we can discuss that candidate and then move on to the secondary candidates. Does that sound unacceptable?
Yes. Can I ask just a process question?
Yes.
I think in the past we've been able to select a candidate, but then also select alternates at the same time. Is that still correct? So.
Yes, that would be, if you feel that everybody is qualified to serve, you absolutely may select alternates, and that's very helpful for us to have alternates available.
Okay, thank you.
And as a follow-up to that, are we able to prioritize the alternates?
You can if you choose, or you can also choose not to. That's also up to you.
Thank you.
If you have alternates, do you have any alternates now?
No, we don't have alternates.
And if you had them, do they need to be equally representative here of the public representative or the school board member?
Well, the alternate position is always, so it's a school, secondary school teacher. The alternate's going to be a secondary school teacher.
Okay.
The substitutes don't have to be in a particular
Got it.
position.
Okay.
So are you?
Yes.
I'm on. So I thought all of the candidates brought something different to the table, and all of those seemed like really valuable things to have on the committee. Excuse me. I think I might be leaning towards Ms. Knopf, and because I thought that her experience in the classroom gave her a breadth of knowledge, I think, that would be really valuable, that she had many years teaching in a secondary classroom, and also her experience working with members of her local organization. It sounds like she has some experience dealing with the kinds of issues that might come up in front of the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Klatt. Commissioner Brown, would you share your first choice?
Knopf is my first choice. I think she's serious. I think she's articulate. And I think her focus on being a quick learner is going to be helpful. But also, she specifically talked about being unbiased, in spite of the fact that she's been in many biased situations. So she would be my number one. That doesn't, yeah, that's enough for now.
Thank you. I would echo Commissioner Klatt's comments that all of these candidates could bring real value and have real strengths and assets. But and I would third, I guess, the choice of Ms. Knopf as our top candidate for the reasons that are already provided by the commissioners. In addition to emphasizing that Ms. Knopf, through her union work and other experiences she has some very directly related skills developed regarding assessing individual employment and discipline situations, which I think will be extremely helpful in terms of getting up to speed for the heavy workload of this committee. I also appreciated her reasoning that she provided in response to the scenarios. When I provided an additional scenario for her to follow up on, her reasoning reassured me about her judgment about appropriateness of teacher actions. And I additionally appreciated that in response to question number 6 about whether the safety of children or the welfare of teachers are a priority, she was clear that the safety of children is a priority, and yet the rights of teachers should not be left aside, and that those were an important part of the process as well. So for all of those, as well as for my confidence that she can handle the difficult workload, given how she has handled heavy levels of extracurricular duties in addition to her curricular duties in the past, I also would recommend Ms. Knopf as our first. So it sounds like we are in agreement there. Let's move on to discussing whether we would like to recommend either or both of the remaining candidates as alternates, and whether we would like to prioritize those alternates. I'm going to turn to Ms. Brown first for her consideration.
You can't put both of them together and take the strengths, and you can't do that. They're individuals. They're individuals. Because I feel like they each have strengths and yet maybe some things that aren't as strong. I think Dr. Wilson has a real eye for trying to, the things that I liked about her in terms of working with new teachers, and puts her right in the forefront of working with teachers that may or may not be ready. And she's the only one of the three that talked about being a mandated reporter. And I find that a strength, because that's the first thing that comes to mind for me in that scenario. At the same time, as a person who works with mostly newbies, she seemed to be someone who might not be as quickly ready to learn. I don't know how to say this. It's probably all on, it'll all come back to me, but a little soft, maybe not as robust about some of the really difficult situations that we've encountered. So I'm a little on the fence with her. But like I said, I really like the fact that she has that, she knows they're sensitive decisions. I thought that her responses to the scenarios were very appropriate. And I like that she referred to the Code of Ethics. I thought that was all in favor. As for Ms. Mark, she would really refer to the Ed Code. And she said that over and over again. And I liked that she had the student as the 100%, the children are a priority. I think she'd be very thorough. But I have to say, listening to her own personal experience, I just didn't know if there might be a little bias there. And we're all affected by our experiences, so that just kind of made me think about that a little bit. So a couple pluses and minuses for both. And I would actually say that I think they would both bring real focus and strength and dedication to the work.
Yes. I guess I'll go in the order you went in. I think Dr. Wilson, I agree with you on the points that you made there. She seemed knowledgeable. I was impressed by the fact that it seemed like she had done some homework, and I thought especially that she thought to look at the proximity, the time proximity in the scenarios. I thought was very astute, and I was impressed by that. I think one, and this might be a question to clarify, and I'm not sure if we're able to do that, going over to Ms. Mark, is that my understanding is the 5 years of secondary experience are in public schools, and I perhaps should have asked her this, and I didn't think about it till now, but she listed as her experience some schools that are not traditionally public schools. So I don't know if you're, Ms. Kendall, able to address how we might consider like the TED Istanbul school or the U.S. Department of State school and the school in Mexico.
We wouldn't consider those, but I believe before they were included in the packet, they met the 5-year requirement with whatever schools would be considered public schools, but those would not be because they're out of.
So the schools that would qualify her then are not recent in the sense they're not included here.
Does she not have?
Well, she has the 216.
I'm going to take a quick look and see.
Oh, actually, as I look at this now, I think it does add up. So we have the 2016 to the present, which would be 2016 to 17. So there's 3 years there. It's 5th grade and middle school. Yeah. And then the 2014 to 16 would be high school continuation. So I guess I didn't see the public secondary school experience as robust as I saw in the other two candidates. And that gives me a little pause, I think.
Middle school is what's being counted. Yeah.
And so I had some concerns again about the robustness of her teaching experience and the settings. Would it give her the broad knowledge of some of the situations that might come up that I think the other two candidates, I think, had a little bit more broader experience in different school settings. So that was one concern I had about Ms. Mark. So I'm not sure if you're looking for.
So I think that let's see,
recommendation.
I again think that they both have much to offer. And I would be comfortable recommending them both as alternates. I would propose selecting Ms. Wilson as our first alternate and Ms. Mark as our second alternate. I think that the pluses and minuses and concerns that both the other commissioners have brought up are helpful. I would add in terms of the weighting there that while Ms. Wilson does not have much direct experience that would relate to this work, I have confidence from what her history is and from her ability to articulate that she would be a quick study who would be able to move into this new sphere rapidly. I liked her example, I thought, of coaching people out of the profession. I thought that was a very good response from someone who does not have direct experience to demonstrate to us that she has the judgment to understand I think both conduct perhaps and personalities that may have conflicts within the teaching profession, and that would help her get up to speed in terms of making judgments about appropriate action or not. So I appreciated that. I got the sense from her that she is a very clear communicator in the way that she conducted the interview and quite comfortable with herself, which I think is quite a value for working on this committee, and that she was confident and comfortable despite, again, this being a different setting. So all of those, and I also appreciated her responses about the scenarios. I appreciated Ms. Mark's understanding of how important this committee is, and I appreciated her sharing that she had an experience that directly touched on this, and that it highlighted for her how important this is. I found her not as strong in terms of incisiveness and analysis and articulation regarding the scenarios that we had presented, and when asked to elaborate and give more detail, perhaps not giving us as much of a window into her thinking as some of the other candidates had. And I appreciated that she was looking to sources of guidance that she would use for making her judgments. And as an applicant, she wouldn't necessarily know that the Ed Code does not speak in detail to many of these situations. So I don't want to fault her for that. Yet I want to recognize what she said about being someone who goes by the book, and knowing that this committee requires much judgment that is based on deliberations within the committee where specifics are not laid out in written guidance. And so that did give me a little bit of pause. Again, I think that she has much to offer, and so I would be glad to have her as a second alternate, but I would suggest that our first alternate be Ms. Wilson and our second alternate be Ms. Mark. Commissioner Barnes, Brown. I had a B. I don't know what my B problem is right now. Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Catherine, and you said your middle name, something Williams. Brown. Catherine Williams Brown.
That'll distinguish me.
Yes. What do you?
Yeah. I think that's.
What
I think
would you weigh in on?
That's
that?
I think that's reasonable. I'd go along with that.
Okay. Commissioner
And
Kyle?
I could support that also.
Okay. So I just want to add one more comment for the record, I guess I would say, in terms of my selection I think the committee's selection of Ms. Knopf as our top choice. That also, I believe, will help us meet our obligations under 511B1 in terms of geographical representation. San Diego school children make up a significant portion of our school children, and at this point we have nobody representative from that area. She also helps with the gender diversity, although that would be relatively true for any of these. And again, we do not have information about the overall makeup ethnically and culturally of the committee, so it is more difficult for us to consider that aspect. Nor should I say, do we have information about our three candidates in terms of that. I believe that we have discussed subsection 2 in terms of looking at their temperaments and understanding of community values and attitudes when we discuss their skills. And I believe that we have also covered number 3 in terms of our discussion with each of the candidates about their ability to take on this heavy workload, and we much appreciate Ms. Kindle's further elaboration of that for the candidates. Do I have a motion, therefore, for the selection of secondary teacher? So moved. I need the motion first. Do you make your motion?
So I move that we select Julia Knopf as the replacement committee member for the Committee of Credentials.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Any further discussion, I should say? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So that motion carries. Do I have a motion for the selection of secondary teacher alternates?
You want to do that one?
Take that one. I will move to recommend Carol Mark and Janice Wilson as alternates to the Committee of Credentials.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I suggest that we order the alternates.
Thank
that
you.
Dr. Wilson will be alternate 1 and Carol Mark will be alternate 2. Is that a
I accept that
friendly
amendment, yes, and thank you for catching that.
All those in favor of the amended motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. This committee's recommendation for selection of the secondary teacher position on the Committee of Credentials and alternate positions will be presented to the Commission at the meeting on Friday, November 22nd, 2019. Unless Ms. Kindle indicates there is any other business we need to attend to, this
Friday? Oh,
November 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I heard February and I thought, wait a minute, no.
Did I?
It was just me.
This concludes the business before the ad hoc committee. I'd like to thank my fellow ad hoc committee members, and we are adjourned.